Dunia semakin terpecah dan tindakan unilateral semakin mendominasi. Ketika berkata ini berlaku, ramai melihat sesi dialog sudah tidak berguna. Editor Kanan Astro AWANI, Najib Aroff bertemu Ketua Komuniti Kerjasama Serantau dan Global Forum Ekonomi Dunia, Shaun Adam, membincangkan bagaimana dialog boleh dipulihkan dalam lanskap geopolitik yang semakin rumit dan bagaimana platform seperti Forum Ekonomi Dunia WEF memainkan peranan. Silakan Najib.
All right, joining us now is Shaun Adam, Regional and Global Cooperation Community Lead, World Economic Forum. Shaun, thank you so much for joining us. Now, let's talk about the theme for World Economic Forum 2026, which is the spirit of a dialogue. If you can describe that, because it's not just dialogue that we are focusing on, it's also the actions by the world leaders, corporate leaders as well. How do we go about this theme, and also how do you see that the world leaders, corporate leaders will perceive this theme?
I think people or humanity has a way of over-complexing things at the moment. The world is definitely in a fragmented state, and there is a lot of multipolar, a lot of different issues rising from geopolitics, economic, etc. So many key issues, and it's very difficult to make sense of it all. Apa maknanya? What does it mean, right? And because of that, we are going back to the basics. And the basics is just to get people together, get leaders together, to have a frank and open dialogue. One way for you to understand the perspective of a different person, whether it's you start very basically from a family. If you have a family issue, you want to understand what's happening with your family issue, you want to solve it, you get together and you have an open dialogue with them. Similarly, if you have an issue with your neighbor, the same thing as well. What we're trying to do is bring the different leaders from business, CEOs, public sector, government, etc., to come and have and share their different views, have a dialogue so they can understand different perspectives, and then hopefully carve a way forward together.
I mean, we've seen this kind of dialogue before from any other platforms and bodies as well. But how do you see that this World Economic Forum 2026 is a very crucial platform? Because we're going to have US President Donald Trump coming, and also Vice President of China and other world leaders as well, the G6, as you mentioned before the interview. How do you see that this platform is crucial for these world leaders to discuss current economic, geopolitical issues, and also the advancements of technology, such as AI?
One thing that the World Economic Forum is very good at doing is convening the right people and putting them in the right room. As an impartial organization, we've been doing that for 56, 57 years now. And by bringing these different leaders together, it helps for different leaders from different parts of the world to understand different perspectives. Okay, and they can also share some of their reservations to certain things, under the theme of a spirit of dialogue, but also understand why certain things are being done with certain agenda, the perspective that's coming from different angle. I think that would be beneficial, that we hope to see that something positive comes out of it.
We've seen the US is some sort of isolating themselves from the UN and also international bodies, and of course we're going to have the President US Donald Trump at World Economic Forum. Why is it important to have him and other world leaders to have that discussion, and why this should be the main focus for the world?
Why it should be the main focus of the world is because, like it or not, regardless of your standing or your different opinions, the US is one of the biggest and the most strongest economy globally at the moment. China is number 2. It's important for them to be in the room. It's important for the number 1 leader, POTUS or Trump, President Trump, to also be in that room, to have that discussion. Yes, they are pulling back from different organizations, multilateralism. Some people say that multilateralism is scaling back, but we recently published this report on the Global Barometer. This Global Barometer looks at the level of cooperation. What we see, yes, multilateralism is falling back, but minilateralism, meaning a group of smaller nations, smaller countries coming together to push specific agenda. They don't have to have a shared value or shared agenda or whatsoever, but they have to have shared priorities. Then they can work together to make it a reality.
Would that be the new norm of collaboration that we will see in the world?
because there is rapid change, every day something new is happening, whether it's from technology or geopolitical confrontation, geoeconomics. Multilateralism, sometimes the best way to make it work is maybe in a mini form. You get things done a little bit more faster, things are a little bit better understood. For example, if you talk about Southeast Asia, if you get a grouping of small countries to work on that problem rather than bringing the whole globe, for example, countries from Latin America, North America, which, yes, they represent the global community, but they may not have a clear or nuanced understanding of that small region.
Right.
So it's good to have a smaller group.
Different sets of problem. I want to talk about ASEAN a little bit because ASEAN and Southeast Asia especially, we are sort of walking on a thin line in terms of when it comes to geoeconomic and geopolitical situation, and it's hard for us to stay neutral in that sense. But how do you see their representatives? It's crucial to be here and have that dialogue and also voice out our stance when it comes to geoeconomic and geopolitical.
I think this particular year we have an exceptional list of ASEAN members attending the World Economic Forum annual meeting. We have Bapak Prabowo from Indonesia, one of the biggest economies in ASEAN, or biggest populated economy in ASEAN. We have the President Jose Ramos from Timor-Leste. They recently joined, became a member of ASEAN, and now they're coming here to promote Timor-Leste, to share Timor-Leste's message with the world. You know, multilateralism still exists. If you know the history between Indonesia and Timor-Leste, there was conflict before, but if they can come together on the same page, same front like ASEAN, it shows that, you know, multilateralism, ASEAN's neutrality is still there. It's a positive sign. And we also have the President Tharman from Singapore, several Singaporean ministers, several ministers from Cambodia, several ministers from Thailand, quite a fair bit representation of ASEAN at the global stage here.
Last year, I remember that the ASEAN, because we have our Malaysian Prime Minister, Shaun Ibrahim, we were the chair for ASEAN last year. Of course, the story of ASEAN was brought to the World Economic Forum, but this year, how do you see the ASEAN can play a crucial role and also be that example to the world in light of fragmentation that's happening? Because we are talking about economic growth that is focusing on ASEAN and Southeast Asia more than rather than Europe and also US and other region in the world. How do you see this crucial for Southeast Asia and also ASEAN to be here and to voice out our stories and all that?
I mean, first of all, I have to give credit to Malaysia last year for its chairmanship of ASEAN. It managed to achieve a lot of different milestones. It managed to bring together quite a number of huge countries. You know, it had the ASEAN GCC summit in China, and then it had the ASEAN Leaders Summit, quite a fair bit representation from the global community. Even members that were not ASEAN, for example, from Brazil and South Africa, were also present. It showed a very open view that ASEAN had. So well done to Malaysia on that. Whereas for Philippines this year, there are some challenges in the region. Of course, they want to conclude the Digital Economic Framework Agreement for ASEAN. Hopefully that will be concluded. Then there is also some geopolitical points that needs to be carefully calibrated. For example, the Myanmar situation. As we speak now, the elections are going on in Myanmar. We want to see what's the outcome of that. Then there's also the South China Sea. So those are some things that Philippines will have to continue to navigate while managing and balancing ASEAN as a neutral platform between the different powers that exist.
I asked this question to Sadia just now. I want to ask the same question to you because it based on your observation for the past few years, because we are talking about building trust, building collaboration for many years before, right? So how do you see the difference from the past few years to the current World Economic Forum 2026, especially when we see the world is more fragmented than ever in terms of having President Donald Trump with its policies and foreign policies and all that, and also we have the isolation and also from the US especially and the Europe taking stance, and we have Greenland issues for geopolitical perspectives. But how do you see the difference from the past year's World Economic Forum?
I think what will be quite interesting at this particular World Economic Forum is not only that we have an impressive amount of world leaders, heads of states and heads of government. It's a record of 68 as of today. More than 400 public figures, ministers, head of international organizations, more than 850 global CEOs and chairmen. So that collection, first of all, is already record-breaking. So we see that as a strong momentum to affect some positive change, whatever that may be. Last year, when President Trump appeared virtually on the annual meeting, he of course made the announcements about the tariffs. We do expect some very interesting announcements in the coming week. I do encourage you to monitor and watch that very closely. Of course, the topic of Gaza, that's being discussed heavily at the moment.
Right.
Maybe even Ukraine and Greenland, of course. I think there will be some interesting developments over the week.
All right. My final question to you, Shaun. What is your hope for Working Forum 2026? Because of course we know the risk and we have the reports from Global Barometer and so Global Risk Report. What is your hope for Working Forum 2026?
I think that's a very good question, and if I have to reflect personally, what we want to prevent is a major global war. You know, at any time, political actors or military actors can trigger a global war,
right?
Very, very easily. You know, you've seen it. You know, everyone is on their seats. What we are hoping, or what I hope, that the conversation that comes out of the World Economic Forum this week and even the months to come is that cooperation will come back on the table. Multilateralism or even minilateralism will continue to exist, and hopefully a more peaceful path can be generated.
Alright, Shaun, thank you so much for joining us. That is Shaun Adam. Dan kita berbincangkan bagaimana kita melihat bahawa pentas Working Forum ini sangat penting sekali, walaupun dialog ini setiap tahun berlakunya dialog, berlangsung dialog, tapi bagaimana untuk kita melihat tindakan yang diambil oleh world leaders. Kali ini seperti yang Shaun sebutkan, perlibatannya paling ramai dari segi pemimpin dunia dan juga korporat sendiri. Namun bagaimana kita melihat diskusi ini meletakkan orang yang betul di bilik yang betul untuk diskusi yang lebih tepat dan juga kena kepada permasalahannya, itu semua kita akan bawakan dalam rangkuman pelbagai platform di Astro AWANI.